श्रीवत्सवंशकलशोदधिकौस्तुभस्य श्रीवासराघवगुरोस्तनयं ततश्च विद्या अवाप्य विबुधोत्तमतां दधानं कुर्वे सदा हृदि गुरुं करुणाकराख्यं लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये श्रीमान् वेङ्कटनाथार्यः कवितार्किककेसरी वेदान्ताचार्यवर्यो मे सन्निधत्तां सदा हृदि. We looked at truth, knowledge, inference, and realization. What the words really mean, what the differences between these words are, what the properties are, and what the requirements are. Let me very quickly go through the requirements part alone. For knowledge, you need to have a knower, you need to have an item or concept to be known, then you need the ability to know, facility for knowledge, ability and possibility. I have the ability to see a mountain, but it will be possible only if the mountain is also there in front of me. That is the difference between ability and possibility. Then, apart from knowledge, there are a few other words that we discussed. Truth. Truth exists by nature, correct? You don't require anything for truth. Truth is truth by nature. To speak the truth, you have requirements. But for truth to exist, no. Truth will always exist by nature. It is by definition. What about inference? Inference is something that requires an inferer. I need to exist, right? Knowledge requires a knower. So inference requires an inferer. It needs the item to be inferred, item, concept, or the property of the item, whatever, that needs to exist. And then to infer all of that also, I need proper facilities. So inference also requires things that are similar to knowledge. The words knowledge and inference are quite close to each other. When we look at realization, realization is beyond knowledge, correct? It needs to be true. It has to be true knowledge, of course. But knowing is different from realizing. I may know that this is correct, but how do I realize that this is correct? I might know that Bhagavan is great, but how do I realize it? There is a sense of feeling involved in realization. That is also important. Then we say that in the context of Sanatana Dharma, for us to realize about the Atma, for us to realize the purpose of life, we need divine will also. We need the grace of Bhagavan to attain Bhagavan. Now today, we are going to move forward. Now that we understood about knowledge, we will try to understand knowledge in the Atma, of the Atma, about the Atma, and so on. What do we mean by knowledge in the Atma? We say that Atma. If somebody is speaking, kindly mute yourself. Knowledge in the Atma means that knowledge is what constitutes the Atma itself. We say Atma is Jnana Swarupa. What does that mean? It means Atma is made up of Jnana. How do you understand the word Jnana though? Will you call it knowledge? Will you call it inference? Will you call it realization? What will you call it? We are saying Atma is Jnana Swarupa. Yet, when we look at its Swabhava, we see that it is not fitting into what we usually call as knowledge. We said for a knowledge, you need knower, you need item to be known, this, that. But how could something be made up of knowledge? You cannot have anything made up of knowledge other than knowledge itself. Think about it. You cannot have any material made up of knowledge. Correct? Material is made up of what? Atoms, molecules. If you say it has only knowledge, With only knowledge of atoms and molecules, what can you have? You can have only knowledge of atoms and molecules. So, knowledge can produce only knowledge. It cannot produce something physical. With the knowledge, if I apply it, if a physical entity applies the knowledge and performs some tasks, that is a different thing. But a collection of knowledge can by itself only be knowledge. So when we say that Atma is Jnana Swarupa, what kind of Jnana is it? It is not the ordinary knowledge that we talk about in the world. It is a very, very different kind. Now, there are many people who use many different words. The terminology here is not fixed. Some people use the word knowledge. Some people use the word consciousness. Now, let us look at the word consciousness. When you say Atma is Jnana Swarupa, Atma being Jnana Swarupa is said by the scripture. Would we infer the Atma to imply consciousness? What does that consciousness mean? If I am sleeping, has the Atma disappeared when I am sleeping? No, it has not disappeared. Okay. If I am in coma, I am unconscious. What about the Atma? No, it is still there. Okay. Maybe you could argue that even though my conscious mind is asleep, my subconscious mind is still working. Heart is still beating. Blood is still flowing. Maybe that subconscious mind is what is being referred to. No, that is also not being referred to. The knowledge of the subconscious mind has nothing to do with what constitutes the Atma. Mind is different from the Atma. If my Atma is there, void of any usable body, take the case of Ahalya. What happened to her? She got a curse. What was the curse? The curse was that she will turn into rock or stone or whatever you call it. Let us call it stone. Now, there is an Atma inside the stone. That Atma, is it able to perform any physical activity? No. Is it able to perform any mental activity? No. To perform a mental activity, you need a brain, you need some kind of either the human nervous system or some animal nervous system or an equivalent of that for other organisms. A stone would have nothing of that. Your mind would not function. You would not be able to think. You will not have a conscious mind. You will not have a subconscious mind. When you do not have a conscious mind or a subconscious mind, and yet you say that there is an Atma there, and that Atma is Jnana Swarupa, it is very clear that the knowledge that we are talking about in the Atma, or the consciousness that we are talking about when saying Atma is consciousness, that consciousness is very different. How does the dictionary define consciousness? The word consciousness, if we really look at it in the dictionary, let us say I go to Google and I type consciousness meaning. What does it say? It says the state of being able to see, hear, feel, etc. Being able to see, hear, feel, and so on. That is not a possibility for Ahalya when she is a stone. She does not have the ability. We said that for knowledge to exist, there needs to be an ability to get that knowledge as well. The item to be known should be there, the knower should be there, and then there should be an ability and a possibility. We saw that. Now, when we apply it in the case of Ahalya, how do we understand it? The person who is supposed to get knowledge, who is there? You are talking about Ahalya, so it has to be Ahalya only. What needs to be known? Something outside? Something inside? What are we talking about? We do not know, because we are talking about knowledge in the Atma, the knowledge that Ahalya's Atma is made up of, the consciousness that Ahalya's Atma is made up of. Who would know it? She would know, or maybe somebody else would know. But if you consider that Atma itself, if you consider Ahalya, the Atma that is being referred to as Ahalya, does she have the ability to see, hear, feel? No, she does not have any ability when she is stone. Therefore, the meaning of the word consciousness given by the English dictionary does not work. Another meaning is given. The second meaning given is the state of realizing or noticing that something exists. That is also not going to be possible in her case. Is it going to be possible? No. Yet we see that the word consciousness is very frequently used. We say Atma is made up of consciousness. Atma is consciousness. Paramatma is super consciousness. That is how a lot of people say it. What are they really trying to imply? If you go by dictionary meanings, you will go wrong. What they are actually trying to say is that Atma is Chit. We discussed in the previous classes about Chit, Achit, Ishvara. Chit means sentient. A table by itself is not sentient. My body by itself is not sentient. But Atma is sentient. So, anything that is sentient is what is referred to as consciousness by these people. But what is sentient? Atma. Therefore, Atma is called as consciousness. Okay. But where is the answer to our question? The knowledge in the Atma. We said Atma itself is made up of knowledge. Would you say Atma is made up of consciousness? You could say that it is a property of the Atma to be sentient. It is a property of the Atma to display consciousness when inside a usable body. If you just look at the Atma, don't look at any body, only Atma, consider only that, then what is its Swarupa? We say it is Jnana Swarupa. What Jnana is there? There is no body, there is nothing else to be known. How do you say it is Jnana Swarupa? Does it ring a bell? Adi Shankaracharya, when talking about Paramartha, what does he say? He says a lot of things, of course, but I would like to point out something very specific. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. What is this Chidananda Rupa? Chidananda Rupa means Chit, Ananda. You are of the form of Chit and Ananda. What do you mean by form of Ananda? And what is Ananda? That also we will have to see. So, Chit means being sentient, but that is something that gets covered under knowledge. What about Ananda? Happiness. It is a feeling. How do you feel? What is really a feeling? When you say, I am happy, I am sad, I am angry. What is that? That feeling is also something that we are having. It is a type of knowledge only. It is something that we are having mentally. We infer something pleasing and we react in a certain way. Our body releases certain hormones, the nerves react in a specific way. We smile outside and so on, and we say that we are happy. That is actually a form of knowledge only. When you know that things are pleasurable and you react to it, that reaction is called as happiness, the display of happiness. So, ultimately, Atma being made up of jnana, be it Shankaracharya, be it Ramanujacharya, be it Madhvacharya, none of them question this. Atma is jnana swarupa. But this jnana swarupa is implying that it is not made up of matter, it is made up of jnana. But this jnana, if you use the dictionary meaning of consciousness, it might not describe it properly. If you use the dictionary meaning of knowledge, it might not help you properly. Yes, in a way, all the terms are correct. But you either have to come up with your own definition to explain it clearly. You have to explain that the consciousness referred to when talking about the Atma, it is referring to something else. It is a Chetana. Chetanatva is being referred to here. What is this Chit? That needs to be understood. If it is not explained, you could get confused. Maybe if we say that Atma is made up of information, that would make it easier to understand. Let us say Atma is made of information. The word jnana in Sanskrit could also be used for information. What is the information that makes up the Atma? We do not know. There is some information. When that information is there, it is the Atma. That much is known to us. Beyond that, the scriptures do not say anything. Okay. But what is the Swabhava? So in Swarupa, we say Atma is Jnana Swarupa, and here all the Acharyas have agreed. What about the Swabhava? Advaita says that its Swabhava is Nirguna. The Swabhava is that it is Nirguna. Its Swabhava is Nirgunatva. It does not have any attribute. That is its real nature. Absolute truth, Paramartha. That is what it is, says Shankaracharya. Here, in Vishishtadvaitha, we are going to differ. What are we saying? We say it has attributes. What kind of attributes? Different kinds of attributes. Like what? Satyatva, Jnanatva, Anandatva, and so on. It has the ability to be happy. It has Satyatva. It has Jnanatva, and so on. So it has the ability to possess knowledge. It is an existing entity which exists for eternity. It is, if you consider the Jivatma, then it is having a constraint in terms of dimension also. It is Anu. If you consider Paramatma, Paramatma is Vibhu, omnipresent. In this manner, Atma has several properties or attributes. As a matter of fact, Paramatma has infinite auspicious attributes. We have seen that part before, so I will not cover that in detail now. It has already been covered, but we know this. So there is a difference. By nature, it has attributes. It is made up of information and it has attributes. It has lots of attributes, lots of properties, lots of abilities, given that the requirements are met. What about the nature of the knowledge that makes up the Atma? We do not know. The only thing we know is that the knowledge that makes up the Atma is the Atma itself. Then the information that constitutes the Atma, when you say it is Jnana Swarupa, what is that Jnana? That Jnana is only Atma. Atma is only that Jnana. That is all the scriptures say. Therefore, it is not possible for us to know further about it. Now let us look at the second kind of knowledge. This is the knowledge possessed by the Atma. Atma is Jnana Swarupa, yes. By nature, Shankaracharya said, Atma does not have the ability to know. It is made up of knowledge, but it does not have the ability to know because nothing else exists. For you to know anything, the item to be known should also exist. That does not exist. The facility to know should exist. That also does not exist. There is nothing to know. Therefore, it does not have the ability to know either. In this manner, Adi Shankaracharya had taught. But in Vishishtadvaitha, as we are saying that Atma is having guna, saguna, savishishta, however you call it. This Atma does have abilities, we said. One of those abilities is the ability to possess knowledge. We called it as Jnatritva. It has the ability to possess knowledge. How does it possess knowledge? It has the ability, okay. But when does it really possess the knowledge? When it has the facilities to possess knowledge. What is this facility that we are talking about? Let us go back to the example of Ahalya. When she was shown, she did not have any facility to possess knowledge. But when she was in a human body, she had the facilities required to possess knowledge. Likewise, so okay, you have the ability to possess knowledge, but will your knowledge remain just like that, or can it increase, decrease, anything? You can process information and gain more knowledge. For that also you need facilities. The human body, the sentient body, any living body is supposed to have certain facilities. Even the virus, which is supposed to be extremely small, which is supposed to be extremely simple. But look at the virus. When it is on a non-living host, it will do nothing. It will behave like a non-living thing. When it is on a living being, somehow it processes the information. Somehow it realizes that I am on a living being. And it realizes that it can multiply. And then it starts multiplying. So, sentient beings have facilities to possess knowledge and facilities to process knowledge. These facilities are provided by the body that they have, the physical body. So, Atma depends on the physical body to possess knowledge and to process knowledge. Okay. What about the types of knowledge? In Vishishtadvaitha, we classify knowledge into two types. One is dharmic jnana and one is dharma bhuta jnana. Dharmic jnana means knowledge of the self, knowledge of the existence of the self. Dharma bhuta jnana is any other knowledge, any knowledge that you have other than the knowledge of the existence of the self will count as dharmic jnana. Dharma bhuta jnana. So there are two types of knowledge. Dharmic jnana, which is knowledge of existence of the self. What do we mean by knowledge of existence of the self? Are you trying to imply that once we know the concept of Atma, we possess that knowledge? No. Knowledge of existence of the self is something that is possessed by every single living being. We will come to that very soon. But Dharma Bhuta Jnana, which comes to us due to our properties, like the facilities that we have, what is there in front of us, and all of that, that is subject to change depending on where we are, how we are interacting with the universe, and so on. Let us continue discussing about Dharmic Jnana. It is the knowledge of Svatma. What is Svatma? Swasya Atma. Knowledge of the existence of myself. That is what I am referring to here. What do we mean by knowledge of existence of myself? There is a level of difference between living beings and non-living beings. One question has come up. Let me see that as well. Do we need to know types of knowledge to attain jnana? I'm not really understanding your question. Are you asking whether you need to know the types of knowledge to attain jnana? Or are you asking whether you need to know the types of knowledge to attain jnana? Please clarify.
Sure, Guruji.
So please clarify what you are trying to ask.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand the concepts what we are trying to understand here. So what if some person has to attain jnana? So the self-realization of the Atman. So is it necessary for him to understand all the attributes of each of his knowledge, or
No, it is not necessary to understand all the attributes, but in the process, see, in Vishishtadvaitha, we say that Atma attains Paramatma. There are lots and lots of ways to attain it. All the Brahma Vidyas are always there. But let us talk about paths that do not require any kind of scholarliness, any kind of scholarship.
Correct.
Sharanagati, go to the simple way,
Yep.
because
Yep.
that is what we praise more in Vishishtadvaitha. We say that rather than doing difficult yoga, difficult tapasya, and so on, you go and do Sharanagati, you will attain moksha. That is the easier and more practical path. That is what we say. Now, it is not necessary to know all of these for a Sharanagata, but these would automatically get known. Either before moksha or at the time of moksha, these would get known. Basically, how are we dividing it? We are saying this is dharmic jnana, this is dharma bhuta jnana. Dharma bhuta jnana is knowledge of things that are other than you. Dharmic jnana means knowledge of the existence of your own Atma. That knowledge is actually there in all living beings. It is just that we do not realize it. How do we show the properties of living beings? For us to show the properties of living beings, we need to acknowledge the existence of ourselves. That acknowledgement is there. I do know that I exist. I don't keep thinking about it. I don't keep thinking that I exist. Oh, I exist, I exist, I exist. I don't keep thinking that way consciously. But I do know that I exist. Whether or not I think about myself, I do know it. That is why my subconscious mind also works. Why does the subconscious mind work? Why do the internal organs work? Why does the heart pump blood and so on? It is because it knows that you exist. That is why. There is a knowledge of the existence of the self, which is a fundamental nature present in all living beings. At sometimes it would be visible, at sometimes it would be invisible. You could enter active and dormant states, but it will never cease to exist. Now, right now, we are saying that knowing about this dharmic jnana, dharma bhuta jnana, is this all necessary to know for us to attain moksha? No. Knowing about these concepts is not necessary to attain moksha. But this particular class or this series of classes on Vishishtadvaitha, if you see that way, you do not have to learn Vishishtadvaitha to be attaining moksha either. You could simply see Bhagavan, you don't know what is Advaita, what is Vishishtadvaita, you don't have to know anything. You see Bhagavan, surrender to him. As per Vishishtadvaita, you will get moksha. But what is this Vishishtadvaita? When we get into theory, because these classes are covering certain topics, because it tells the approach that is used. Now, if somebody comes and asks, how do you know that if I surrender to Bhagavan, I will get moksha? What is the proof? I need to be able to answer. Let us say I give some answer. Let us say I say scriptures say so. Then he will ask, how do you interpret the scripture? As per Shankaracharya, the Bhagavan is not different from me. Whatever I see as Bhagavan, you call him Saguna Brahman. That Saguna Brahman who is called by Shankaracharya is the same Nirguna Brahman only. Shankaracharya says Brahman is only one. Then why are you saying I should go and surrender to Bhagavan? Why can't I surrender to myself? I mean, Shankaracharya has also answered this question. It is not that he was never questioned. He was also asked several dozens of questions. So, for you to put forth anything, any path, be it path of knowledge, path of surrender, whatever, you have to be able to explain it somehow. When people accept and believe and follow, everything is great. But what if people start questioning? At that point of time, if you are not armed with theory, you will not be able to answer. Therefore, theoretical knowledge is important. Therefore, the existence of scriptures is important. Therefore, knowing the scriptures, or at least the basics of scriptures, is important. Today, we are having the problem of people coming and converting others also. People of other religions, they say n number of lies about Sanatana Dharma and pull our people away. So, we do see that practically it does not hurt to know concepts, and secondly, it is quite useful to know the concepts. When I know that this is dharma bhuta jnana, it is the nature of dharma bhuta jnana of a jivatma to be sanchita in baddha dasha. Oh my God, I have used so many terms. But let us say I understand all of that. Then I would naturally know that, yes, I am a jiva. I will not feel that I am a paramatma. Nobody feels that they are paramatman, right? Do you feel that you are? You might believe, but you might not feel. That is a difference. I do not feel all powerful. I do not feel all knowing. I might end up assuming that I'm all knowing also, but that will also not make me all knowing. Or even attributelessness. If you talk about Nirguna Brahman, as expounded by Shankaracharya, you can never feel Nirguna. You'll never be able to feel it. If you are feeling, that itself is a guna. Therefore, at some point of time, having this knowledge helps. Having the theory in front of us helps. So I would be humble if I feel, yes, I am not all knowing. This is my nature. This is the nature of Paramatma. What should I therefore seek? I should therefore seek Paramatma. That comes through this scripture, through the knowledge of scripture. So, coming back to what I was.
Thank you so much, Guruji.
Yeah. So, coming back to what I was saying, the state of knowing the self in which manner? Know that you are Atma and not the body, that kind? No. We are talking about the existence of the self. We living beings fundamentally possess the state of knowing the existence of ourselves. That is how we function as living beings. Dharmic jnana, this is called. When we are awake, it is there. When I am awake, I might actually be thinking about something else. I might be thinking about a chair, I might be thinking about a table, I might be thinking about a person. But there is still the knowledge of the existence of myself at all points of time. When I sleep also, it is there at all points of time. In Sushupti, it is still there. This knowledge is not going to be removed. What if I get moksha? After moksha also this knowledge is going to be there, says Vishishtadvaitha. In Advaita, of course, in Nirguna moksha you do not have jnana. But here in Vishishtadvaita, the knowledge of the existence of the self is going to be there even after moksha. Okay. Is there any other knowledge? Yes. Knowledge is not just about knowing that I exist. Knowledge is about n number of things. If there is a chair, there is a table, there is a person, as we said. Knowledge of all other things are there. What about all of that? That is called dharma bhuta jnana. Now, this knowledge can contract or expand. What do we mean by contraction or expansion? We imply that if you forget something, or if I forget something, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., there is supposed to be a Vishishtadvaitha class on Tuesday. I know it, but I forget it later on. Then there is a change that is happening. Some people forget temporarily and later remember, but there are certain things that we forget and never remember again. Contraction. Or we study, we learn, we attend the class, we learn something new. Knowledge expands. The words we are using, sankocha vikasa, that is contraction and expansion. Why are we using these kinds of words? We are not using subtraction and addition. We are using sankocha and vikasa as the words. We are using the words as contraction and expansion, or something like blooming, right? A flower blooming is how you compare the expansion of knowledge. Why? Because things to know are infinite. As you learn more, you are not creating anything new. What is already there outside, you are knowing it. It means that your knowledge of what is already there is only expanding. Your radius is expanding. That is what we mean. Okay. What about the starting state? For Paramatma, there is obviously infinite knowledge. There is no contraction of knowledge. Paramatma also has dharmic jnana. Paramatma is aware of the existence of the self. But in dharma bhuta jnana, Paramatma never has a contraction or an expansion. Expansion and contraction of knowledge are defined only for Jivatma. For Paramatma, they are not defined. Why? Because Paramatma has infinite knowledge, as opposed to a knowledgeless state, uh, attributeless, implying knowledgeless, nirguna, therefore implying a state of ajnana. But that ajnana, Shankaracharya does not say that Brahman is a fool. He says there is no jnana because there is nothing to know. But in Vishishtadvaitha, we say that Paramatma is a state that has infinite knowledge. Therefore, there is nothing to know. And the state of infinite knowledge is permanent. Therefore, there is no contraction. So there is nothing to know, and there will never be anything to know because everything is already known. Is this clear? So for Paramatma, everything is already known. Therefore, there is no expansion or contraction. Everything is already known and nothing is going to be forgotten. We are not like that. If I leave this body and enter another body, if I die now and then get another birth and I enter some other body, what is going to happen? There is going to be a contraction of knowledge. I will be a baby and then I will again learn everything, assuming I am a human. What if I am a plant? So expansion and contraction are defined for jivas. And the starting state is of two types. The very, very beginning, and in the very, very beginning, we had ajnana only. Okay, what about the beginning of my life? What about the knowledge? When the Atma enters the body, it does contain the knowledge of the previous life. But this knowledge is very quickly forgotten. That is what the Shastras say. In the rare case where it is not forgotten, you would start with the memory of your previous life. That is there. But the scriptures have said it, we accept it. We do not have scientific ways to prove it, we don't care. What about the ending state? Now, Vishishtadvaitha says that every jiva will eventually attain moksha. Maybe you will attain tomorrow. Maybe I will attain after 1 billion years. We are all attaining. Everybody will attain moksha at some point of time or the other. Why is that so? That is because we do not believe in an eternal hell. Now, Madhvas, the Dvaitin, they believe in a concept of eternal darkness. But we do not believe in that. In Vishishtadvaita, we say there is no eternal darkness. Yes, there is a possibility. You either come closer or you go further away from Paramatma, from moksha. But once you come to Paramatma, you will never go back. Once you attain moksha, there is no going back. It is a permanent state. Also, every step that you take towards Paramatma will eventually make it easier for you to get even closer to him. This is said by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And we see examples in the stories of Ajamila and so on. What happened in the case of Ajamila? He took the he took the step to get closer to Bhagavan. Then he forgot, he got distracted, so many things happened. But eventually, as a phala of his past karma, he was able to utter the word Narayana, although he was not really thinking about Bhagavan. He uttered Narayana for another reason. He is calling out some person. Yet, he used the word Narayana as a phala of his past good karma. That immediately helped Vishnu Dutas to come. Then with Yamaduta, Vishnu Duta going to Yamaloka, not undergoing the tortures of Yamaloka, and then finally returning to the path of Sharanagati and living as a Sharanagata until he got moksha. That is what happened in Ajamila's life. Now, a lot of people do not talk about returning to the path of a Sharanagata and living that way. It is not said by the scripture that he recited Narayana and instantly got moksha. He said Narayana, but as a phala of that, his Narakanubhava was vanquished, and he did have to spend some time to cancel all his prarabdha karma and then attain moksha. That is what happened. But what are we talking about here? We are saying that ultimately everybody would attain moksha. And what is there in the state of moksha? There is infinite knowledge. Among other things, there is a state of infinite knowledge when you are in moksha. So, your final ending state, if you get moksha, you will have infinite knowledge. Paripurna Vikasa. Okay. At all other times, there is a constraint that is brought by space and time. Correct? It takes time to know more, but over a period of time, I might forget as well. Where I am is going to decide what knowledge I have. All of those things are going to be important. So, knowledge is constrained by space and time. We could also say that it is constrained by space as Leela Vibhuti and Nitya Vibhuti. If you are in the materialistic universe, you will never have infinite knowledge. Once you attain moksha, once you enter Nitya Vibhuti, after that you will have infinite knowledge. Time, here the materialistic world, the universe that we live in, this universe is bound by time. But Nitya Vibhuti is not bound by time. So if you are in the region that is not bound by time, you would have infinite knowledge. But if you are in the region that is bound by time, you would have only finite knowledge. We should remember that it is perception that leads to knowledge, inference of knowledge, and then there are only certain ways to perceive. What are the ways to perceive? The scriptures have said it. Specific ways to perceive. The scriptures have said that you have pratyaksha, you have anumana, and you have shabda. Now in Advaita, they say there are 6 pramanas. In Vishishtadvaitha, we say there are 3. And those 3 are pratyaksha, direct inference, anumana, that is logical reasoning. Inside that, you can put all the components of logical reasoning inside of anumana itself. And then we say there is shabda. That is the shastra that you have, the scripture that you have. Things that cannot be known by direct inference or by logical reasoning. For example, several concepts about the Atma, they are known to us only through scripture. By logical reasoning, I cannot even imagine Amaravati. Devaloka is there, there is a capital Amaravati, inside that Indra is sitting. I cannot infer that logically. And I cannot perceive it directly also. I can't even see it. I don't know where it is. But scriptures have said so, therefore I know it. That is important. We have covered pramanas before in a past class. Therefore, I am not going to get into further detail about it. So now we have covered two types of jnana. We said there is dharmic jnana, which is knowledge of existence of the self, and there is dharma bhuta jnana, which is basically all the other knowledge that the Atma could possess. Now, inside dharma bhuta jnana, there is a specific type of jnana that we often call Atma jnana. We call it Atma jnana. What is that? It is knowledge about the Atma. What is this knowledge about the Atma? You should have correct knowledge of what is Atma and what is Anatma. It is very important. Even Shankaracharya says, Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka. What is Nitya Vastu? Atma. What is Anitya Vastu? Everything other than the Atma. So, correct knowledge of Atma and Anatma. Pratyaksha is sensory perception, right? See, Pratyaksha is that which is directly perceived. For directly perceiving, we use our senses. We use our eyes, we use our ears, and therefore we say it is sensory perception. It is not wrong to call it sensory perception. But why is it sensory perception? Because sensory perception is what gives you direct inference. If it is logical reasoning, it is not direct, right? You have to think, okay, the sun has risen in the east, but it is moving towards the west. Therefore, I predict that it is going to set in the west. That prediction is not direct. It is not coming from senses. Direct perception will come from the senses. Therefore, it is called sensory perception. Also, logical reasoning, logical interpretation, that anumana is going to be dependent on pratyaksha. If you do not have any pratyaksha jnana, you cannot have anumana. You can apply logical reasoning only on some given knowledge. If nothing is given to you, you cannot apply anything. I don't know where the sun rises. I don't know where the sun moves. Will I know where the sun sets without even being outside during sunset? No. So I need either pratyaksha, I need to be there during sunset and look at the sun, or I should have known, I should have the knowledge that the sun is moving towards the west in order to conclude that the sun sets in the west. So logical reasoning requires pratyaksha jnana. Please throw some light on aparoksha jnana also. We will do that in the next class. Right now, we are a little short of time. We need to conclude this class. Okay, we are talking about knowledge about the Atma right now. Okay, now see, all of these are terms that are very often used. Paroksha jnana, aparoksha jnana, and so on. Okay, so where it is aparoksha, we are going to say that it comes only through specific ways. How is it going to come? Indirect knowledge and direct knowledge. When you have direct knowledge, it is going to come only from certain sources. But how good are those sources and which sources should we look for? That we covered in the previous class for that. So I do not want to get deeper there. Let us stick to what is here. Now, if there is a specific type of dharma bhuta jnana is of infinite ways, right? In infinite kinds, dharma bhuta jnana about, like whatever we call as knowledge in general is dharma bhuta jnana only. So, knowledge of a table, knowledge of a chair, knowledge of a person, knowledge of the world, knowledge of anything, knowledge of some incident that happened in the past, all of that knowledge is going to fall under dharma bhuta jnana. In that, there is a specific knowledge which pertains to knowledge of the Atma, knowledge about the Atma. Here, we require correct knowledge of Atma and Anatma. It is a very fundamental thing in Sanatana Dharma. The concept of Atma is very, very fundamental. The nature of the anatma is different. The nature of the anatma is and the nature of the atma, both are explained differently by different schools. We will move to Artha Panchaka. At that time, we will learn it in greater detail for Vishishtadvaitha. But this nature of the Atma, the knowledge about the Atma, how do we get it? Do we get it through direct knowledge, direct inference? No, we do not get it. Vedavyasa himself says you cannot get it. So even if we try, we cannot get. There are certain properties that we can understand, but that is the best that it goes. You cannot prove the existence of the Atma through direct perception or by logical interpretation. You cannot learn it by going outside and observing or going and calculating either. People might say everything has a source. There is something, life is there. What is life? What is Atma? A lot of people debated. 2 generations before the time of Bhagavad Ramanuja, people were debating with Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya composed Siddhitrayam. In Siddhitrayam, there is a part called Atma Siddhi. There are 3 parts in Siddhitrayam, as the name suggests: Atma Siddhi, Ishvara Siddhi, and Samvit Siddhi. In Atma Siddhi, he explains the nature of the Atma by putting forth the arguments of various other schools. So there are people who say that the Atma doesn't exist at all. There are some people who say Atma is the mind. All of them used logical reasoning. They observed that there is a difference between a living being and a non-living being. And they said that what is the difference between the two? We do see a difference. That difference, let us call it Atma. Okay, but what is that difference? Some people said it is the mind. Some people said that it is the ability to function. But our Shastras do not say either of that. Even without the ability to function, take the example of Ahalya. When she was shown, she did not have the ability to function. She couldn't move, she couldn't speak, she couldn't do anything. Yet, we do say it was an Atma there. Correct? And we also saw in this class itself a while back that Atma is different from the mind as well. Be it conscious mind or subconscious mind or whatever, it is different from the mind. So, it is possible for us to know about the Atma only through the scriptures. The scriptures alone are the pramanas by which we know about the Atma. When we believe in it, yes, we have the knowledge of the Atma. When we do not believe in it, we do not have the knowledge, but Atma is going to remain in the same way. Whether or not we believe in it, fact is not going to change. How do we realize it then? In the previous class, we said that knowledge is different from realization. Bhagavad Ramanuja is very strong there. He says knowledge is not enough. Of course, even Shankaracharya says mere knowledge is not enough, right? You get knowledge through Shravana itself. But Shankaracharya said after Shravana, there are 2 more steps. What are they? Manana, Nididhyasana. Bhagavad Ramanuja says that you need upasana. You need to practice. Once you get knowledge, you have to use that knowledge. Only when you use that knowledge, you can get moksha. And moksha is the state of complete realization of the Atma. So, you can know about the Atma by learning the scriptures. But when will you completely realize it? We saw about how Kaivalya is defined in Vishishtadvaitha. We said Kaivalya is a state of Svatma Anubhava. That explains it. So if you are in Kaivalya state, it means you are having Svatma Anubhava, you are experiencing your own Atma, therefore you have realized it. Yet, Paramatma cannot be realized in that state. It is Svatma. If you attain moksha as defined by Vishishtadvaita, which is differentiated from Kaivalya in Vishishtadvaita, there you would realize both the Jivatma and the Paramatma. when you are in moksha sthiti, you would have realized the nature of Jivatma and Paramatma both. So you can get the knowledge only from scriptures, and you can get the realization of the Atma, let us say Jiva, through Kaivalya or Moksha Gatis only. It is not possible to know it in any other way. I mean, it is not possible to realize it in any other way. Learnable only through the scriptures, realizable only through Kaivalya or Moksha Gatis. So that concludes the topic for today. If there is any other question, some questions were already asked. If there is any other question, feel free to let me know.
No, only question is, it was all brilliantly explained, very lucidly explained. Learning through scripture means which scriptures?
You're referring to this, right? Learnable only through scripture. We are talking about Vedic scriptures, the scriptures that talk about the Atma.
That
See,
is Upanishads and Gita and things.
not only them, not only them. See, Upanishads talk about Atma, yes, 100%. Bhagavad Gita talks about Atma, yes, 100%. Brahma Sutras talk about the Atma, 100%. They all exist for the same reason. Bhagavad Gita exists to explain the scriptures in a simpler way, in a form of a conversation. Brahma Sutras exist to clarify the Upanishads. They all talk about the same topic. But what about outside of the Upanishads? What if I take Vishnu Purana? What if I take Padma Purana? What if I take Ramayana? What if I take Mahabharata? All of them also teach about the Atma.
Okay.
Of the Atma exists in Ramayana, it exists in Mahabharata, it exists in Puranas as well.
Thank you. You got the clarity. Thank you, sir.
So let us just call it as Vedic scriptures, Vedas and all the other scriptures that are allied with the Vedas. Let us call it that way. It is Vedic knowledge at the end of the day. All the Itihasas and Puranas also explain only what the Vedas have said. They exist only for that purpose. That is why we call it as Upabrahmana. So they are existing only to explain the teachings of the Vedas. It is the same knowledge.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for attending. श्रीवत्सं शुक्लशोधिकोस्तुभस्य श्रीवासराघवगुरोस्तनयं ततश्च विद्यावाप्य विबुधोत्तमतां दधानं कुर्वे सदा हृदि गुरुं करुणाकराख्यं लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामनमध्यमामस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्